The promise of Europe has always been one shared by many, inhabited by many nations, all broadly sharing one thing: Christian culture and traditions, and centuries of war against one another. The war to end all wars didn't, and another followed more severe than the last, but on the other side there lay the remains of what was to be the rising hegemon of Europe. Split into pieces, destroyed across 2 wars, Germany has sustained over 10 million dead across 2 world wars lasting a cumulative 10 years. But that has hardly put a damper on her older, more ingrained passion. Germany is deep in culture, steeped in unique architecture, known for its bloody wars in history, its banking clans, and its innovative mercantile class. Inventing and spreading those inventions, or taking others' innovations and proliferating them more effectively. It was Napoleon Bonaparte first who said that conscription is the vitality of a nation, but it was Otto von Bismarck who took that and destroyed France some 6 decades later. In 1949, at the advent of the new republic, Konrad Adenauer would ascend to be the first chancellor of West Germany from 1949 to 1963, and the first leader of the Christian Democratic Union. As a Catholic Rhinelander born in 1876, Adenauer endured the Kulturkampf, Bismarck's war against Catholics within Germany, and it left in him a lasting impression against anything considered Prussian. Despite the Kulturkampf, Adenauer was not a man to sit down. He was an inventor. He created all sorts of things. A steam engine in 1904, for example, which included a built-in dust filter. But he was not resigned to simply inventing. He studied law and politics at the universities of Freiburg, Munich, and Bonn. Bonn, of special fondness to Adenauer, would later become the capital of his new Germany. In World War I, elected as mayor of Cologne in 1917, he staved off food shortages by inventing the soy sausage, and was re-elected in 1929 after his first 12-year term was up. As vice president of the German Colonial Society from 1931 to 1933, he was once quoted as saying, "The German Empire must strive for the acquisition of colonies. There is too little room in the empire itself for its large population." From his earliest days, he was an ardent anti-socialist, a Catholic of academic esteem. He even considered working with the Nazis in 1932, but alas, the alliance never came to be. Zentrum was targeted as a party, and Adenauer, still a patriotic German, was again prey to what he saw as an evil rooted in Prussian tradition. The Adler had become a leviathan, its tentacles tearing apart the nation. Upon his election in 1949, he went on a campaign against denazification. He opposed the Oder-Neisse Line Agreement, even though he privately had no wish to reobtain them, and he pressed for rearmament. The Germany of the modern day still has much to thank the CDU for. Its bolder politicians like Adenauer and the later Helmut Kohl are famous for being the unifier of Germany and the longest-serving chancellors in its history. Kohl is honestly the reason Germany is what it is today. Adenauer is widely regarded as a founding father of the European Union, and Germany itself today is its largest economic component, with a gap of over 1 trillion GDP from any other European nation. In many ways, Adenauer, without a single shot fired, has acquired the position Wilhelm and Adolf sought for, that of European hegemon. But in having succeeded and not having fired a shot, the Prussian spirit is indeed dead in Germany. The army is tiny, even though its technological prowess is unmatched in some fields, and its military industry is forced to find foreign markets. Between the long reign of Angela Merkel, the economic crisis of 2008, and the stagnation of the German economy, Germany has certainly been in a better state. But at least politics is stable, for the time being. Beginning in 2020, many will recall this decade as the hard years. Coronavirus appears in China and quickly finds itself in Europe, spreading, sowing chaos and uncertainty, and our economy suffers. Then, as if it weren't enough, the Saudi king perishes from the virus and their nation splits into various pieces. Merkel was hoping for a quiet year and a smooth transition of power for her retirement, but she would never be granted such a nicety. No, in fact, it will only get much worse. The Russians hiked prices, and we're forced to find alternatives, but not just for us. As the leading economy of Europe, it is our burden to help all our friends. Europe is Germany, and Germany is Europe. Together we are strong, and separate we are nothing. On behalf of the EU, we assemble delegations to OPEC. We send a delegation to Venezuela and to Azerbaijan and to even Iran. We seek to lift sanctions against American advisory to acquire cheaper black gold for our economy. Oil and natural gas are the very lifebloods of our economy. Without them, we have no heating, we have no transportation. Our economy, so heavily reliant on exporting, would grind to a halt. Luckily, our delegations are successful on all counts. Our international partners, newfound, aid us in obtaining relief. As it moves into mid-2021, the Saudi refugee crisis mirrors the Syrian refugee crisis in severity. Anti-migrant protests break out, and to top it off, America recalls its troops from Europe. The newly elected President Trump is concerned with increasing amounts of civil unrest, and it's moving beyond its ability to control it. Until eventually, in July of 2021, it all falls inward. Wall Street collapses, and right following it, so does the Berlin stock market. Back to square one. As an economic union, the EU moves with Germany at its helm to combat the economic collapse, all while an election season is underway and the CDU is under heavy scrutiny. Armin Laschet, yet another Rhine-born politician, is the head of the CDU campaign going into late 2021. It's a close race between the CDU and the SPD, with the AfD and Die Linke making significant gains. But Chancellor Laschet makes it past the post, forming the Deutschland coalition of Schwarz-Rot-Gold between the CDU, SPD, and the FDP. Laschet won through making a series of promises. The first, economic recovery. The second, finishing the nuclear phase-out as part of that recovery. And 3, handling the Saudi migrant crisis. As well as 4, a commitment to green development. The 2021 floods made climate change a hot election topic. Laschet won many points in the Rhine and across the nation when he changed his politics on such a day, calling for a more sustainable future. Entering 2022, a unity government was moving forward to counter the crises at hand. But that didn't mean the population still didn't suffer and complain in the meantime. Laschet isn't necessarily a qualified economist. He is a journalist and a political scientist with a 30-year political career. To accomplish the goals of economic reform, he will need to appoint the right people. The businessmen of the FDP provide an economic recovery plan. Christian Lindner, alongside the SPD and CDU, formulate a social liberal economic reform which will tackle corporate corruption and safeguard state pensions. The loss of the United States to civil war and the apparent loss of the United States forever leads Germany to become a much more prolific hub of industrial production. As the American People's Liberation Army trudges east, hell-bent on taking all of America down an anarcho-communist pit, what businesses still remained fled en masse to the European Union. Lindner used low taxes and loose requirements to draw in these American expats and help them feel comfortable setting up in Germany. But it wasn't just America that became a business bleeder. The Russian Federation similarly faced a Saudi event. Their president dying of the virus in late 2022, and communists seizing control of the government shortly thereafter. Their ensuing nationalization plans caused a mass migration of Russian money and assets into Europe. The environment was ripe for Germany to take advantage of the now free-flowing capital and economic uncertainty. Communism was back on the menu, and Germany was alone. Their burgeoning industry dragged them out of economic turmoil in 2024, and a campaign began by Armin Laschet pressing for rearmament. Laschet long disliked Germany's weakness in foreign policy. Their army is too small, their position in NATO too weak. But as a major supplier of armaments, Laschet was able to acquire the leadership of NATO in the 2022 emergency elections. Germany, Europe's grandest economy and largest population, was entrusted with the security of all of Europe. Their role as a mediator became important in 2023 as Belgium would split. The world crisis created a series of government collapses in Belgium that culminated in months of a broken government unable to act. Paralyzed, when the new Flemish alliance under Prime Minister Bart de Wever finally formed a government, they saw fit to break the country away and fold Flanders into the Netherlands. The now freestanding Republic of Wallonia, the city of Brussels and Flanders itself, had a disputed international status, but it was German and French arbitration that ultimately led to a clean division of Belgium and the establishment of Brussels as the first sovereign territory of the European Union, a city for all Europeans. Once, Adenauer's West Germany was made an anti-Bolshevik bulwark. The Germany of Adenauer would need to be revived again in order to bring out the true strength of NATO's European Titan. The Neue Adenauer platform was created going into the 2025 elections. Armin Laschet was looking to make Germany strong. His successful anti-migrant campaigns, his economic recovery, the bolstering of the manufacturing sector, and Laschet was a shoo-in for another term, but he took a chance on it all by calling for the reintroduction of conscription. But it paid off. An anarchist America, a vengeful China, and an expansionist Soviets led to a population shit-scared of anything socialist. Utilizing the BFV, Laschet targeted De Link and the AFD, bringing both parties to their knees in the electoral landslide of 25. Laschet was given carte blanche, an even greater political monopoly, using the same coalition as before. The reintroduction of conscription allowed the army to expand to 300,000 men in the field. Rheinmetall, Heckler & Koch, among others, had been filling contracts for equipment for several years now in an attempt to keep the military stockpiles large and healthy. And now, they were fully servicing over 54 mechanized divisions. The Bundeswehr is revived and ready to stand up to the bear. Now all that's left is waiting. The invasion of Belarus, of Central Asia, and finally, of the Caucasus. We had given our guarantee to Ukraine. Any violation of their sovereignty would be an end to peace. This was a Europe ready, armed, reborn in fear of an old enemy.
Я инициировал телефонный разговор с президентом Российской Федерации. Результат – тишина. Хотя тишина должна быть на Донбассе. Поэтому сегодня я хочу обратиться ко всем гражданам России.
War has returned to Europe. Almost 30 years after the Balkan Wars and over half a century after Soviet troops marched into Prague and Budapest, civil defense sirens again went off in the heart of a European capital. Men, women, children are dying once again because a foreign leader decided that their country, Ukraine, has no right to exist. And we will never, ever let that happen and never, ever accept that.
Guarantee Ukraine security for the long term. This work is now more advanced than ever. Today's joint declaration set that out in clear terms. On top of that, and alongside President Zelensky and President Macron, we went even further today. We signed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces to Ukraine.
President Metsola, dear Roberta, Minister Buhner, honourable members. This week's European Council is about facing the reality of the moment. The reality of a world that has become dangerous and transactional, a world of wars, a world of predators. The reality of this world means we Europeans must defend ourselves and we must depend on ourselves.
Victory in Europe has caused the collapse of the Soviet war machine in a matter of weeks. Our victory was swift. It vindicated the policy of Chancellor Laschet. But we are forgetting perhaps an even more important element in the equation. While Germany was a major piece of the rearmament plan, it was the European Union's leadership itself who were the ones that set equipment and production targets for the entire continent and guided Europe towards the militaristic policies and attitudes that got them to win the war. At the helm of the European Commission was former German Defense Minister, CDU member Ursula von der Leyen. Ursula is quite the spectacular politician. Graduating from the London School of Economics in 1978, she hailed from a German couple who were some of the first civil servants in the European coal and steel community. Not content with just economics qualifications, she got a doctorate at the Hanover School of Medicine in 1987, then entered local Hanoverian politics in the 1990s. With Angela Merkel's election, she became a cabinet member, the only person who served as a cabinet member for the entire duration of Merkel's reign, serving in 3 different positions, but ultimately defined by her time as Minister of Defense. Upon her exit in 2019, she was a favorite candidate to succeed Merkel, and she was considered a potential successor for NATO head Jens Stoltenberg. But rather than this, she entered European politics as part of the EPP. In 2019, she was elected head of the European Commission, and she had a grand plan. The promise of a European federation is too great to turn down. In a world where America is gone, democracy has no defender but Europe. Europe has to step up to the plate. She began to make legislation and decrees with support from the European Parliament for the rearmament of European nations and joint defense. Chancellor Laschet was a steadfast part of the plan, leading efforts to establish a unified European command, a joint procurement agency, but even with Laschet removed from the equation, Ursula was stacking the European Commission with people who were staunchly anti-Russian and anti-communist. Kaja Kallas became the head of the European Union's diplomatic wing, an Estonian and a former Prime Minister of Estonia, known for drawing Russian ire. Her appointment was calculated, surely. People call her undiplomatic, but that is precisely the point. She will anger Europe's adversaries and not bend an inch. Others, such as the Latvian Valdis Dombrovskis and Cypriot Stella Kyriakidis and the Finnish Henna Virkkunen, being placed into positions of prominence in the Ursula Commission, showcase her proclivity for giving power to politicians of the so-called European frontier, nations that are most directly under threat by Russian expansionism, and as such, politicians who will support her goals of collective defense. It is under Ursula that the European Green Deal is implemented following the collapse of America, and manufacturing grew with EU subsidies under the Clean Industrial Act, which built new manufacturing centers and reformed older ones using the latest technology. but her magnum opus was the implementation of Rearm Europe. Initially, it was a plan for 2030, but with America gone and the Soviets back, she pushed that goal to 2026, and funding nearly doubled to 1.4 trillion euros. Rearm Europe planned to drastically alter the European budget and to bend the rules on fiscal stability to ensure a fast and effective rearmament of Europe. And as you saw, this paid off. The ultimate goals of Ursula and her cadre are far from over. With the war won, it is up to Europe now to become the superpower that defends democracy. Agenda 2030 is the plan of Ursula and the EPP to federalize the European Union. In conjunction with many other European parties, including Volt Europa, Agenda 2030 will be put into place for collective security, economic development, and to challenge Chinese economic hegemony. In every corner of the world, democracy is threatened. Mexico, Colombia, the Congo, South Africa, and even in the newly created Caucasian states, Chechen extremists threaten our newly created stability, and in the Middle East, our greatest ally, Israel, is under siege. Europe must unite. Their arms and their values must become the police of the world instead of our lost American allies. Launching Operation Global Enforcer, the European Army begins a series of sub-operations. Operation Solomon spearheads efforts to save Israel from yet another Arab coalition. The victorious Nile River Coalition is broken by a combined offensive that secures Port Said and knocks the Egyptians out of the war. In the north, Hezbollah and the forces of Assad tried and failed to break the Israeli defense. Simultaneously, operations across the world were launched to save the Kinshasa government, to save the government in Cape Town, to crush communists in Colombia, and to take down the cartels in Mexico so that Scheinbaum can become a bulwark against American anarchy. Sending a strong message to the communal U.S., Europe guarantees the freedom of Canada and Mexico. Europe becomes the guarantor of the rules-based global order, but with a new war on the horizon in Asia and a defiant Russian administration rebuilt under Alexei Navalny, it becomes clear that while much of the world is secure and safe, some places simply have to be taken down. A new operation is pursued by the European Command. The North African states were unified under Saif Gaddafi. Their large population, socialist government, and close proximity to the continent threatens our security and remains a blight to our efforts to counter global communism. This will not be a simple repeat of the Gulf War. This campaign is much more vast. It involves toppling the Arab state, Egypt, and Syria. The operation broadly is centered on security in the Middle East. Iran is included as an objective, taken out first due to their ability to strike back with long-range missiles. Our ports in Morocco are staffed, and as Egypt's defense is breached, the true operation can begin. Alexei Navalny was always who we considered our man in Russia, but in many ways he proves now to follow Yeltsin, not in drunkenness, but certainly in patriotism. His goal of restoring the Russian Federation's borders is destroying the air of peace in Europe. While we were busy sending troops worldwide to secure democracy, Kalmykia and the Don Republic were convinced to rejoin Russia. The Republic of Ichkeria too joined, and following nationalist protests in Stavropol, Russian forces would enter the eastern parts of the Kuban Republic under the guise of peacekeeping. This act alone nearly sparked a war. Ukraine mobilized and everything very nearly sparked off all over again, but things fizzled out. Peace remained, but Russia was uninterested in cooperation, refusing to pay reparations, refusing to accept army limitations. A new war for Europe was inevitable. The now united European Union was all together, except for Ukraine, a wave of nationalism keeping them out of our union for now. Regardless, the European army staffs their border across the entire line. Russian mobilization has dwarfed anything the Soviets ever rose. Our terms were not rough enough, our occupation was too light, the war too quick. We did not destroy their army or their spirit. Similarly, in Asia, a great war rages. Technocrats have created a grand army in China, and it has began to run down India, to run down Korea. We cannot let democracy fall. As an ultimatum is sent to the Kuban Republic, it becomes clear that Europe is undoubtedly under siege. Democracy's last bastion must ensure the old world remains free from sea to shining sea. Wait for us, Tokyo. The light of liberty is on its way. The forces of Navalny try to break through the European lines through forced attacks. They acquire mild ground but expend their best assault units in the process. A counterattack will take advantage of this, and with any luck, we won't have to stop pushing until the war is over.
Jebie, kurwa, się zamknij tam, kurwa, nie bajo jajo, ty pierdolony chamie. Bajo jajo. Bajo jajo, ty chuju jebany na Inowrocławsku i jesteś, ja ci zaraz dam bajo jajo, kurwa. Zaraz cię ściągnę i chuju do dupy dokopię, kurwa, bajo jajo pierdolone.
With the total collapse of the Russian army, the Siberian territories of Russia have broken into pieces. Kazakhstan is free again, and it is up to us to bring order to chaos, to preserve the freedom of the Central Asian states, and to save the Japanese and Indian republics from falling. In a call back to the Boxer Rebellion, Operation Peking brings all the former participants bar America, back together for a Sino slash. The Chinese behemoth is the last titan standing in the way of global order, peace, and democracy. The Mongols appear to the Chinese for aid, joining the EADI, but it is pointless. Democracy is non-negotiable. Chinese advances across all of Asia slow substantially as European forces amass along the border with China. Hastily, European soldiers erect supply depots, railroads, and repurpose airfields. The defeat of Russia was one thing, the pacification of Siberia another, but China could be a whole different ballgame altogether. Swift and decisive victory is the only option. Chen Wenqing sues the NATO PDTO coalition for peace. Thoroughly defeated, he turns inward in hopes of preserving his police state, but in his greed, he lost everything. With much of the intelligence apparatus he had set up relying on cameras that we destroyed during our invasion, hundreds of millions were now beyond the surveillance of the state, and China began to collapse in on itself. The last Chinese warlord period lasted some 40 years. Who knows how long this one will last? With the direct integration of Ukraine into the European Union alongside Russia following the Great European War, some 180 million new citizens were admitted to the EU, currently without representation. Ursula von der Leyen called for snap elections. The European Commission, European Parliament, and various EU member states all agreed this was needed. Political integration of the Russian Federation's former population is gradual, but this election would be the first to involve the Russian people. Parties like Yabloko and Russia of the Future would post up candidates in local, national, and federal elections. Politicians like Nikolai Rybakov would obtain commission to stand in the Euro Parliament within the ALDE, standing with their fellows in the Liberal Internationale, while politicians from a Just Russia would apply for the S&D, successor parties to the CPRF, and United Russia, even though they would obtain a concerning number of votes, became a marginalized party. A new class of politicians enter the Euro Parliament. Russia is now the largest member by population and landmass. They are embraced by the West, protected by the smart market regulations of Europe. There will be no shock therapy this time. With America under anarchy and China in pieces, the world economy is dominated by the European Union and its Asian partners. For a decade, commodity shortages will affect many parts of the world as markets and production shift to balance themselves in a world free of Chinese products. No matter what happens now, no matter who is elected, what Dr. von der Leyen and her allies have achieved will forever go down in history as a turning point where Europe broke every opponent and stood upon the planet wearing the wreath of liberty like a crown. Thank you for joining me this week. I had a good fun time making this. I did say I would try and get it out in a week, and I failed. It's been 2 weeks, but I'm trying to get back into a weekly schedule. It's just, I'm not sure that it's possible anymore. I think maybe my quality has gone up. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it's harder and harder to do these videos in a short time frame. But, that being said, I will try to make a commitment to more videos more often. Let's go ahead and take care of our Patreon obligations. To my $5 Knights of Biskin, thank you Gangsta Plays, Panchak, The Irishman, Samay Cash App, Null Scorpion, Dedrin, Steve Hayes, Luther Manhole, Santiago Soto, Gotts Hubner, Booscumps, Cyclonus777, I still can't say your name, Legrand Puba, Justin, Von Kale, Ian Riley, Reggie Flores, and Tommy Leah. And to my scone and taxpayer, thank you all greatly for donating. Please join the Discord and ping me to receive your rolls. I'll see you on the next one.